For J.O. De La Rey, this is Trent Holmgren with the Europa Report for the week ending June 1st, 2018, covering the ongoing non-white invasion of the European continent. We start with updates on Tommy Robinson and the situation in England. The imprisonment last week of citizen journalist and right-wing activist Tommy Robinson came to worldwide attention and resulted in protests outside 10 Downing Street with 500,000 people signing a petition for his release. However, a temporary media ban, which was lifted after legal challenges by the left-wing independent website and local news outlet Leeds Live on Tuesday, prevented details of his arrest and sentencing hearing from being reported in the UK. So where did it all start? In the early hours of May 10th, 2017, Tommy Robinson, whose real name is Stephen Christopher Yaxley Lennon, was arrested in his home in Luton, Bedfordshire for contempt of court. On May 8th, the citizen journalist and 2 cameramen from Rebel Media had filmed a Canterbury Crown Court looking to interview one of 4 male suspects accused of raping a 16-year-old girl in Ramsgate, Kent. 4 suspects, Tameen Ramini, 37, Shersha Muslimayer, 20, Rafulia Hamidi, 24, and Hamid Mohammadi, 18, were all found guilty of gang raping the teen 3 weeks later. Crown courts are open to the press, but any filming and recording in court buildings is illegal under Section 41 of the Criminal Justice Act 1925 and the Contempt of Court Act, with judges now claiming that this can extend to court precincts, although mainstream press regularly congregate outside court buildings without sanction. Robinson was sentenced to 3 months imprisonment, with the sentence suspended for 18 months. 1 year later, Robinson was detained outside Leeds Crown Court on Friday, May 25th, after using social media to broadcast details of an ongoing trial which had been reported in the local press initially, but was later subject to blanket reporting restrictions. The activist pleaded guilty to contempt of court on Friday and was handed a 13-month prison sentence, 10 months for contempt of court, and a further 3 months for breaching the suspended sentence, to be served consecutively rather than concurrently, which is unusual. In what Leeds Live called a rare move, Robinson has been arrested, brought before a judge, and sentenced within 5 hours. Media silence. However, details of Robinson's arrest and imprisonment had all been wiped from the British media after publications such as Breitbart News, the Scottish Daily Record, local press Birmingham Live, and the left-wing Mirror, and others were forced to delete their articles throughout the day. Leeds Crown Court has issued a UK media ban following the 35-year-old's arrest. The reporting restriction put in place, the judge said in the order, to avoid a substantial risk of prejudice in the proceedings of the case of the right-wing activist was reporting on. The ban was to be active until the end of the trial. However, media outlets outside Britain began to report on the strange case of Tommy Robinson falling down the memory hole, with social media becoming an alternative news platform for Britons to access details of the case. Breitbart London posted a copy of the reporting restrictions, heavily redacted, in what the U.S. Gatestone Institute said proved to be a perfect illustration of Western Europe's encroaching tyranny. Worldwide reaction. The story came to prominence on a global scale after being covered by right-wing U.S. news network Fox News. Alex Jones owned InfoWars and was featured on a lead article in the highly influential news aggregator Drudge Report on Saturday. The case also came to attention of President Donald J. Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr. Support came from figures including anti-mass migration, Australian political firebrand Pauline Hanson, and German populist MP Peter Bystrom, who told Breitbart London he wanted to try to help Robinson claim political asylum in Germany. Robinson's former employer, Canada-based Rebel Media chief Ezra Levant, accused British authorities of hypocrisy for imposing such a lengthy sentence in prison, claiming other reporters on the left had received lighter sentences for contempt of court. On Saturday the 26th, thousands of supporters of Tommy Robinson gathered down Whitehall to peacefully protest his imprisonment and the media blackout in what they considered an attack on free speech, press freedom, and targeted assault on right-wing thought. Protesters chanted towards the direction of 10 Downing Street, calling "Shame on you" and holding #FreeTommy signs. One woman held a cardboard sign which read, "Free the truth teller, free Tommy." Supporters urged the release of Robinson, fearing that the prison sentence could be an effective death sentence should he fall into the hands of the Islamist inmates. UKIP leader Gerard Batten said that one of the party's members of the House of Lords, Malcolm Pearson, had written to Home Secretary Sajid Javid on Sunday, tweeting, "If Tommy is murdered or injured in prison, he and others will mount a private persecution against Mr. Javid as an accessory or for misconduct in public office." On to another story. Has any of this made a difference, or are we just getting hot air? A group of 20 MPs have called for concrete action to be taken against sickening grooming gangs as the government was accused of letting down thousands of victims of child sexual exploitation in the UK. In a letter to the Home Office noting alarming similarities in how the gangs of mostly Pakistani heritage men operate across Britain, the cross-party group called for government research into why the abuse is taking place. The MPs, who largely represent areas where grooming has been rife, stated, "Cases of gang-related sexual child exploitation such as those in Rotherham, Telford, and Newcastle conform to a precise model of recruitment, manipulation, and exploitation. Despite these commonalities, we are not aware of any research being undertaken to understand the drivers for this kind of crime. We believe the government should commission research covering the specifics of gang grooming, including the national networks in which this crime exists. the group told Home Secretary Sajid Javid. At the top of the list of signatories were the name of Labour MP Sarah Champion and Tory MP Lucy Allen, who represent Rotherham and Telford respectively. Both constituencies were revealed in recent years to have seen decades-long child abuse scandals in which politically correct authorities turned a blind eye to the industrial-scale sex trafficking and mass rape of thousands of vulnerable girls at the hands of mostly Muslim grooming gangs. Speaking with Sky News, Ms. Champion said, "It's absolutely sickening that child abuse can take place on an industrial scale and more isn't being done about it. It's a national scandal that this is even happening at all. It's not just in Rotherham, it's right across the UK. It's time the government stepped up and stopped this once and for all." The letter came from Jane Sr., the whistleblower awarded an MBE for services to child protection for her part in bringing the Rotherham abuse to light, blasted the government's record on helping victims of CSE. She said, "When I went to see David Cameron in 2015, I naively believed that this issue would be resourced, that the victims would be given an opportunity to not only come forward but to also receive support around therapy and counseling. But that hasn't happened. It's all so tiresome. So let's go to Italy for a white pill." The European Union has been dealt a severe blow in Italy with anti-establishment five-star nationalist Lega forming a government including the Eurosceptic Paolo Savona, Italian President Sergio Mattarella, an EU loyalist appointed by fellow politicians rather than elected by the people, used his usually ceremonial position to block the Populist Party's first attempt to form a government, claiming that Savona, their pick for economy minister, was unsuitable due to past criticism of the euro currency. The elderly head of state then sent for globalist technocrat Carlo Cottarelli, a former International Monetary Fund director, to form a so-called caretaker government, but the scheme was scuppered amid a massive public backlash, with five-star leader Luigi Di Maio calling for the president's impeachment and many members of the public voicing their support on social media. President Mattarella said he would allow the two parties more time to form a government and ultimately signed off on an Italy-first administration which saw Paolo Savona return not as economy minister but pointedly as EU affairs minister. This, along with claims by President of the European Commission Jean-Claude Juncker that Italy needs more work, less corruption, and seriousness rather than less EU, almost guarantee that Rome and Brussels will come into conflict sooner rather than later. We need another white pill. Denmark has become the latest country in Europe to outlaw the wearing of Islamic face veils in the same week that a study revealed that nearly three-quarters of Britons would back a burqa ban. A survey by the Pew Research Center found that 71% of Britons said they supported a ban on the religious garment, which is associated with Islamic fundamentalism and the oppression of women. As country after country in Europe enact their own bans in an effort to alleviate the continent-wide problems with social cohesion caused by self-segregating Muslim communities, such findings indicate support for UKIP's 2017 manifesto pledge to ban the burqa in the UK. And some good news from Slovenia. Slovenian voters go to the polls this weekend in a parliamentary election expected to produce no clear winner, but which could see strong gains by an anti-immigration party backed by Hungary's firebrand Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Sunday's vote is formally a snap ballot called a few weeks earlier than the regular four-year span, following the sudden resignation in March of outgoing Prime Minister Miro Cerar over a failed railway project. Slovenia, once a republic in the former communist-run Yugoslavia, joined the EU in 2004 and has been using the euro currency since 2007. The election pits former Prime Minister Janez Janša's right-wing opposition Slovenian Democratic Party against the new party led by an ex-comedian and several moderate groups from the outgoing ruling coalition. Janša's rising popularity is seen as a reflection of a wider surge in right-wing populism in Central and Eastern Europe amid the influx into Europe of migrants from the Middle East and Africa. And now we end up setting up a cliffhanger. The clear lines of good and evil are set. According to information of Germany's newspaper Der Tagesspiegel, Angela Merkel's CDU party issued an ultimatum to Viktor Orban's Fidesz. They have to meet two conditions in order to stay in the European People's Party. Andreas Nick, who is the German delegation's head to the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, made the suggestions to the CDU's leadership. According to his conditions, the Hungarian government, A, must do everything to make it possible for the Central European University to stay in Budapest and sign the already negotiated contract with the state of New York, and B, must wait for the Venice Commission's opinion before accepting the Stop Soros legislative package and accept their requirements. How will Orban respond? Tune in next week to find out. The Europa Report thanks Autolycus. This week, we sourced stories from Breitbart London and VoiceOfEurope.com. Please support their efforts.
Turn off Boomer Conservative Talk Radio and turn on Fash the Nation. If you don't drain who we tell you to drain, we'll